Hello YouTubers, welcome to my channel. I wanted to give a basic recap of the funeral and talk about a few things that we saw. I know that there's a lot going on with William and Harry right now. I do immediately want to point out that I think it is good that for the sake of, dignity and the funeral and all of that William and Harry were able to set aside their differences and they were able to, make it all about Philip, because it was about Prince Philip and everything that he has done in his life to commemorate everything that this man has done for a nation. And most importantly, that people can see how Prince Philip's life was, in a sense, a teachable life lesson for younger generations. And that is something that I also want to talk on as well, because times have changed so much that I don't think that the generation of Prince Philip, we're seeing this kind of commitment to one's public service in life as we're seeing in the generation of students that we have, or young people today. And you can see it all really for what it is, just in those who are on these global stages and show themselves. And that is Harry and his wife. And I just want to point out that because there's some things that were said during the funeral, and while Prince Philip was someone who looked as if he had all of this privilege and all of this great life, if you didn't really understand or know much about his legacy in life, you would know that he too had suffered from a lot of the things that Meghan Markle talked about having suffered through. And she could have learned so much just by knowing what it was that Prince Philip had to go through in his life. But I just want to touch on a couple of things from the funeral, because, it was a beautiful funeral. It was so moving and simple, and everything down from the choir to the gun salutes, the Royal Marines, the buglers, the barrels that were, the cannons that were shooting. It had so much depth of tradition in it. And at the same time, it was created specifically and specially for Prince Philip. It was what he wanted for his funeral. And there was a lot of symbolism in that, but I don't want to go too much into that, but I do want to talk about, who he was. So, we know Prince Philip he is one of the last veterans of the Second World War. His coffin was carried by the Land Rover that he had helped to design. He had his family walking behind him. So the cousin of Prince William, Peter Philip, was between William and Harry. I mean, it's been said that William was the one that wanted Peter to be in between them. And I don't blame him, because at this point, you just don't want to even see Harry at this point. And the whole idea that you have committed your life to doing what's right and upstanding, you can't even wear your military uniforms because Harry and Andrew that made poor choices in order to not make them feel like, a fish out of water. Everybody got to dress down. I'm not so agreeing with that, but, that's what the Queen wanted. So, people respected that and did that. But I think it's hard to want to have people learn life lessons, because that's the kind of tough love that most people find hard to deal. They don't like to deal out that tough love. But I believe that tough love is something that gets you to really see things for what they are when it's most important, because you're being forced to suffer your pain for the learning moment, for the teachable moment. And what better way to teach Harry about his nonsense than to have to walk behind that casket in a suit and everyone else is in their military uniforms? He can really sit well in his decision to leave the royal family, most definitely in this moment, in the most dramatic way possible. He could be walking behind that casket in his suit, looking around at everybody in their military uniforms, him and Andrew, and then they can really feel the burn and the pain of their choices and really feel the consequences of their choices in that very moment. But what it says is that the consequences are being felt by the people who have done nothing wrong, because they're the ones who have been denied wearing their military uniforms. How much learning is happening in this moment if Harry is in his suit and everyone else is in their suit? Like, what is he really feeling in terms of his choices and his decision making? He's not really feeling much of anything. He's feeling like he's conquered and he's been able to get people to accommodate him not being allowed to wear his suit. I mean, his military suit. So I know that's hard for people to give that tough love, but I think it would have been so prevalent in this moment. Most definitely more impactful in this moment. But I felt overall it was a really nice funeral. It was really sad seeing the Queen sitting there all alone. She just seems so frail, and you can just feel her sorrow. You can feel her loneliness. She just had this appearance of just a hard mental struggle of life coming to this point. Like, we know she's got privilege, but you know, she's the head of state. She's got so much more than the average grandmother or woman at this age would normally have. And she has carried it with such dignity and with great posture and gratitude. And you have to look up to someone like that to really appreciate everything that they've gone through. I know I have. For me, it was really great to hear when there were words said about Philip. And some of the things that were said were about how he had a resolute faith and loyalty for his high sense of duty and integrity, for his life of service to the nation and to the Commonwealth, and the courage and inspiration of his leadership. Like these were words that were used to describe him, Philip. And it had to be so jarring for Harry to sit and listen to this, to listen to all the things that he is not, that Philip in his death was able to have such resolute words, such strong and revered words said about him. It had to sit with Harry to know that he hasn't been able to live up nearly close enough to that of what his grandfather has done. And to me, it just says so much to go to a funeral like this and to hear the things that are being said and spoken about Philip, and to know that you have done everything to go against that which was spoken that day. Harry had spoken against all of the things that were being honored in this funeral on this day. And it was good for him to have to sit and listen to it. But will he really understand it to be that? Probably not. Because at this point, it almost seems as if, you know, he and his wife are really delusional and sick mentally with all the things that they have said, with all the lies from the Oprah interview. And now it's being said that Meghan had written a note to go on the coffin of Prince Philip, when we know that note that said on top of the coffin was from Queen Elizabeth, his wife. Like, why would that be from Meghan? and seeing how she's trying to just jab her way into something that she ain't got no business putting her 2 cents in. It's ridiculous. There was also a photo that was released with Prince Philip and the Queen with their grandchildren. Now, it is true that this picture was taken in 2018, and I had mentioned that, you know, Archie wasn't going to be there. Well, Archie wasn't born yet, but still, and yet that picture being released still says a lot, because that picture with Prince Philip in his final years, Meghan could have had that moment as well with her son having had that a picture with his grandfather. Now there is the one picture from the christening, okay, or shortly after the christening, but there is not this picture that shows a close relationship with your grandfather. You know, Archie is what, a little over 1 year old now. How poignant would that have been had there been a picture of Archie with his grandfather at an age where he could have interacted and got to know his great grandfather. But that opportunity, that moment has been missed because of this couple's selfish ways. So that releasing of that picture still says a lot, that, you know, or it spoke a lot that you have missed out on the life of the great grandfather for your child, Harry and Meghan. And I like that Prince William also released a photo of Prince Philip and his son, Prince George. So they're saying the same thing. They're giving a tribute to their grandfather, their great grandfather, but at the same time showing that our young children have been able to have this relationship with their great grandfather that will be passed down in history, having known that this relationship got to be present in moment before Prince Philip passed away. And this was something that Harry and Meghan were not able to afford to their son. By choice. By choice. So that spoke a lot to me. It just really, to me, was a funeral that summed up very nicely a life lived, a life that showed that he could have had any kind of life that he really wanted, essentially. He could have done many things, but he chose a life to give back and to have service to his country and to his wife. And at the end was so sweet when the funeral was over and Elizabeth was in the car behind her husband. And at this moment was the only time that his wife followed him. And it just ended very nicely that way. Also, Catherine, I thought it was really nice how Catherine encouraged the conversation between her husband, William, and Harry when they were leaving the chapel, how she kind of backed up and let them get together. I mean, I think that was good for Catherine to do that. She's being a good sport. She is the peacemaker. She's like, okay, honey, you just, you know, I'm going to back it up a little bit and you're going to go and just speak to your brother because, you know, he's coming up and he's working real hard to try to get up there and talk to them, and as he should. And, you know, of course, William was being polite. Catherine was being polite. But, you know, like I said during my live, they still need to show him that he did wrong. Because you can't go off and do the things that Harry did and come back to a normal relationship. You can show that we're getting along, we're being dignified, and we are going to represent well for our grandfather during his funeral. But at the same time, there are consequences to behavior such as that of which Harry and his wife have shown. And they have to be shown the consequences of their behavior, because if not, when does the moment of learning and teaching become relevant? When does what you have done become a moment of reckoning for you? If you can go and spew all this hate and come back and like, okay, we good, we fine, life back to normal. No, you have to show that you are going to have repercussions of your actions. You are going to pay a price, because rest assured, Harry is going to continue doing that which he has already done. He is going to continue doing these things. And if he can just, leave and come back and life is all good because we trying to save face, or we trying to show that, okay, we need to, olive branch, let's get along. Well, no, you have to at some point see, okay, you made a choice to do something. Now pay the price for the choice. Pay the price. Okay, the price has been paid. Now we can maybe talk about coming back together. But only until you've paid the price and you see what you've done wrong can you come back with a clear head to think, okay, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Or I'm going to keep doing that and my family doesn't like me. Well, they're going to keep not liking me because I'm going to still keep doing what I'm going to do. Well, then the family has to keep saying, no, we're not going to put up with you backstabbing the family. And this is so ironic because isn't this why Meghan had sued her own father for breach of privacy? But you're going to breach the privacy of your husband's family? The contradictions in how Meghan has been emboldened to do these things because she's got, Oprah on speed dial to call for another interview. They be mean. I need to talk to you, Oprah. We need another interview. Like, it just doesn't make sense that they're even doing what they're doing, let alone the family that they are throwing under the bus needs to not let them see that everything is okay. Now they can do this behind closed walls, but they need to show it. They need to show it. So, and if anything, show it out of respect to Philip and what he stood for in his life. Because we know Philip wasn't putting up with it. Because at the beginning, he told Harry, look, one steps out with an actress, one doesn't marry her. The man knew what he was talking about. He knew. So, and in keeping to your honor to Philip, maintain what you represent and stand for. So I can appreciate people saying they have to be dignified, they have to show respect, but at the same time, I'm hoping in their roundabout, royal, stiff upper lip kind of way, they gonna show him, behind closed doors, we setting the record straight. You don't treat us like that. That is what I am hoping is happening. But overall, the funeral was really nice. And my most favorite part about the funeral was when the bagpipes were played. And at this point, the coffin was actually being lowered down into the ground there inside the church and inside the chapel. And I didn't know that because when we were watching it live, we didn't see that camera angle. It wasn't until later when I saw it. When you heard those bagpipes playing, that's when the coffin was going down. I was like, oh my goodness, this is too much. This is so powerful and so sad and just so elegant and nice. It was put together so well and everything was just like on point. The whole time. And you saw William when he was standing outside walking behind the coffin, you could see he was clenching his teeth. Like you could see he was tense because that Harry Windsor, he was just like, didn't want to have to look over and catch a whiff glance at him, so that must have been hard. But at the end, they were able to speak save face in front of everybody. But I do hope that, when they went to their private little get together and gathering, that they had some choice words or just be a little standoffish to him. I did hear that they had like a powerful talk afterwards, to talk about everything that had happened. Because if you don't set the record straight, if you don't put your foot down now, that he's going to do it again because he is not man enough to do what he knows he needs to do. And that girl over across the pond, sitting over there waiting and plotting and planning to do the next thing to this royal family, because we know that she's done these things to other family members. So there is a day of reckoning to be learned here between what Prince Philip stood for and everything about who he was as a man, and to what needs to be learned by showing true consequences to Harry and his behavior.